The morning of December 7, 1941, was meant to be a quiet Sunday at an American naval base situated some 4,000 miles away from the Japanese mainland. But emerging from the skies over the Pacific, a swarm of bombers was about to shatter that peace, and dramatically alter the course of human history. For decades, the narrative has often painted this as an unforeseen tragedy, a bolt from the blue. Yet, looking closely at the decade before the first bomb fell, a chilling reality emerges. This devastating strike was not a sudden impulse. It was the climax of a collision course years in the making. How did two nations find themselves at the edge of this abyss? And why did Japan decide that a surprise attack was their only way forward? To understand the fire that rained down on Hawaii, we must first look back. For much of its history, the island nation of Japan had been isolated from the rest of the world. But near the turn of the 20th century, a shift occurred. Japan embarked on a period of aggressive expansion. Two successful conflicts, against China in 1894 to 1895, and the Russo-Japanese War in 1904 to 1905, ignited these ambitions. This confidence was only bolstered by Japan's successful participation, alongside the Allies during World War I, between 1914 and 1918. But then came the Great Depression of the 1930s. Faced with mounting economic and demographic woes, Japan looked to its neighbors to secure power and resources. In 1931, they forced their way into China, launching an invasion of Manchuria. When a commission appointed by the League of Nations condemned the act, Japan didn't back down. They simply withdrew from the international organization, occupying Manchuria until 1945. The path to war deepened in July 1937. A clash at Beijing's Marco Polo Bridge sparked another Sino-Japanese war. By that December, Japanese forces captured Nanjing, the capital of the Chinese Nationalist Party, or Kuomintang. What followed were 6 weeks of mass killings and rapes, an atrocity now infamous as the Nanjing Massacre. Watching these events unfold, the United States decided it had to curb Japan's global expansion. Washington began passing severe economic sanctions, implementing trade embargoes on vital goods, aircraft exports, scrap metal, and crucially, oil. Alongside this, the U.S. provided economic support to the Kuomintang forces. The geopolitical rift widened further in September 1940, when Japan signed the Tripartite Pact with Germany and Italy, aligning itself with the two fascist regimes, then at war with the Allies. For months, Tokyo and Washington attempted to negotiate. The United States hoped the embargoes would choke off Japan's expansionism. Instead, the sanctions had the opposite effect. They convinced Japan to stand its ground, stirring public anger against Western interference in Asian affairs. To Japanese leadership, war with the United States began to seem inevitable. It was a necessary step to defend their status as a major world power. But with the odds heavily stacked against them, they realized their only chance of victory lay in one terrifying tactic: the element of surprise. In May 1940, the United States made a fateful decision. They established Pearl Harbor as the main base for its Pacific Fleet. Because Americans did not expect the Japanese to strike first in Hawaii, so far from the mainland, the base was left relatively undefended. It was a tempting target. After a year of intense training, the trap was set. A Japanese strike force, consisting of 6 carriers and 420 planes, sailed 3,500 miles in complete secrecy from the Kurile Islands, moving silently toward Oahu. On the morning of December 7, 1941, they struck. Flying just 50 feet above the water, Japanese torpedo bombers fired on U.S. ships in the harbor, while other planes dropped bombs and strafed the decks with bullets. The American military was completely unprepared. The devastation was staggering. The attack killed 2,403 service members and wounded 1,178 more. Japanese bombers hit all 8 U.S. battleships present, sinking 4 and damaging the other 4, while destroying or damaging more than 300 aircraft. Smoke poured from sinking Titans like the USS California and the USS Arizona, which exploded and sank into the mud. At first glance, the strike appeared to be a brilliant, albeit brutal, tactical success for Japan. In the immediate aftermath, the Japanese war machine seemed unstoppable. By early 1942, their forces swept through a string of current and former Western colonial possessions, including Burma, British Malaya, the Dutch East Indies, and the Philippines. This conquest secured exactly what they had sought: access to plentiful natural resources, notably oil and rubber. But beneath the surface of this triumph lay a fatal flaw. The Pearl Harbor attack had failed in its primary objective to completely destroy the Pacific Fleet. The Japanese bombers had missed the vital oil tanks, the ammunition sites, and the repair facilities. More importantly, not a single U.S. aircraft carrier was present during the attack. This critical oversight would soon return to haunt the Japanese Empire. Instead of breaking American morale, the surprise attack drove the United States out of its isolationism and forcefully into World War II. In June 1942, U.S. forces scored a major, decisive victory at the Battle of Midway, permanently turning the tide of the war in the Pacific. The conflict, that began with a calculated morning raid, would ultimately end in August 1945, culminating in Japan's surrender following the devastating atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The attack on Pearl Harbor was a desperate gamble for empire, a gamble that ignited a global firestorm from which the world would never be the same. Thank you for watching. If you want to explore more deep dives into the pivotal moments of our past, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below on which historical event we should cover next.